Ave Regina,
Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. John. Now a man was ill, Lazarus from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who had anointed the Lord with perfumed oil and dried his feet with her hair. It was her brother Lazarus who was ill. So the sisters sent word to him, saying, Master, the one you love is ill. And when Jesus heard this, he said, This illness is not to end in death, but is for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was ill, he remained for 2 days in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to his disciples, Let us go back to Judea. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just trying to stone you, and you want to go back there? Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in a day? If one walks during the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if one walks at night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him. He said this, and then told them, Our friend Lazarus is asleep, but I'm going to awaken him. So the disciples said to him, Master, if he's asleep, he will be saved. But Jesus was talking about his death, while they thought that he meant ordinary sleep. So Jesus said to them clearly, Lazarus has died, and I am glad for you that I was not there, that you may believe. Let us go to him. So Thomas, called Didymus, said to his fellow disciples, Let us also go to die with him. When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in a tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, only about 2 miles away. And many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary sat at home. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. Jesus said to her, Your brother will rise. Martha said to him, I know he will rise in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus told her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, Yes, Lord. I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who is coming into the world. When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary secretly, saying, The teacher is here and is asking for you. As soon as she heard this, she rose quickly and went to him. For Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still where Martha had met him. So when the Jews who were with her in the house comforting her saw Mary get up quickly and go out, they followed her, presuming that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her weeping, he became perturbed and deeply troubled and said, Where have you laid him? They said to him, Sir, come and see. And Jesus wept. So the Jews said, See how we loved him. But some of them said, could not the one who opened the eyes of the blind man have done something so that this man would not have died?" So Jesus, perturbed again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay across it. Jesus said, "Take the stone away." Martha, the dead man's sister, said to him, "Lord, by now there will be a stench. He has been dead for 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone, and Jesus raised his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you for hearing me. I know that you always hear me, but because of the crowd here, I've had said this, that they may believe that you sent me." And when he had said this, he cried out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out, tied hand and foot with burial bands, and his face was wrapped in a cloth. So Jesus said to them, "Untie him and let him go." Now many of the Jews who had come to Mary and seen what he had done began to believe in him. There are many questions in the sacred scriptures that you and I must answer. Pope John Paul II said that there are 2 questions in the scriptures that are probably more important than any other question that is asked. And he said both questions are in the Gospels. And he said the first question is a question that was posed to the disciples as they were on their way to Caesarea Philippi. When he said, "Who do the people say that I am?" And some said, "Well, some say you're Jeremiah the prophet. Some say you're this, some say you're that, some say you're this. But who do you say that I am?" Who do you say that I am? That's the first question. Every single human person has to answer that question. And based upon how they answer it, their lives will take one direction or another. John Paul said that the second question that is most important that we must answer is in the gospel that was just proclaimed. "I am the resurrection and the life. Everybody who believes in me will never die." Do you believe this? Do you believe this? Who do you say that I am? And do you believe that Jesus is the resurrection and the life? Let's be clear about something. There are other religions in the world that profess a belief in an afterlife. Jesus links and connects this belief in an afterlife with his person. It is undeniable with his person. I recently, some time ago, listened to a podcast where a professor asked his students, "Where do you get your information?" They all held up their iPhones. And then he said, "So what is the source of your knowledge?" And they said, "Science." And then he said, "What is the source of your wisdom?" Silence. He couldn't point to anything because there are so many different opinions about the source of wisdom. And Jesus teaches that he is the enfleshment, the embodiment of all wisdom. Who do you say that I am? Do you believe that he is the resurrection and the life? I have to be honest with you. I came here today prepared to expound to you what the Catechism teaches. But then I thought to myself, you know what? Jesus sent his apostles out and didn't say to them, look, you're going to be my theologians. No, he said, you are going to be my witnesses. You are witnesses to the things that I've said, and you are witnesses to the things that I have done. Everything that Jesus did was evidence of everything that he said. All of the miracles point to the evidence that he is who he claims to be. I've said to you before that I have little boy faith. I don't believe anything any differently today about Jesus Christ than I did when I was a little boy. What seminary has done for me has given me a framework to be able to talk about everything I've always believed. Out of the mouths of babes, out of the mouths of children, come this wisdom. I have two stories I want to tell you about children and their wisdom, and about this witness to faith that Jesus talks about with regards to his apostles. And the first story is about a family who had a little girl who was crippled. She was in a wheelchair. And so the family decided that they were going to take her to Lourdes to be healed. So this little girl had a younger brother. And they told the little girl and they told the younger brother that most of the time when people went to Lourdes, they were healed when the priest passed by with the Blessed Sacrament. So they got on a plane and they went to Lourdes. And lo and behold, they found themselves in a situation where they were at Mass. And the priest came by with the Blessed Sacrament after Mass as he blessed the people, and he blessed the little girl. And he moved on to the next person, and her brother said to her, "Are you healed?" And she said, looked at the Blessed Sacrament and pointed his finger and said, "I'm going to tell your mother." The priest came back to the little girl and blessed her, and she was healed. That's a true story. I'm going to tell your mother. That little girl was healed because of her brother's faith. It's no different than those people who lowered that paralytic through the roof. It was their faith that healed him. So now I want to tell you another story. It's the story of a father who wanted his son to receive his first communion. And the priest really wasn't convinced that this little boy really understood the real presence of the Eucharist. And so in questioning the father said, yes, he understands. And so the priest said, well, I need to test to find out if he really does. And so he said to the little boy, as he pointed to the crucifix, which is covered right now, he said, "Who is that?" And the little boy said, "It's Jesus." Okay. Then he pointed to the tabernacle and he said, "Who's in there?" And the little boy said, "It's Jesus." So the priest, not being really convinced, said to the little boy, "How do you know the difference And the little boy said to the priest, "Well, Father, let me explain it to you this way." Then he pointed to the cross, a crucifix, and he said, "You see the cross?" He said, "That's really the fake Jesus. It just looks like him." And then he pointed to the tabernacle and he said, "That's the real Jesus. It looks like the fake Jesus, but it's the real Jesus." Out of the mouths of babes comes the witness to the faith. Who do you say that I am? I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, yet shall he live. And everybody who believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? So here's the deal. Baptism is the first down payment to resurrection. It's the first down payment. Why, Father? Because you're baptized into Christ. You're baptized into Christ. You are clothed in Christ. You put on Christ, as St. Paul says. The Holy Eucharist, which we celebrate here at Mass, is food for the journey. It is the real presence of Jesus, body, blood, soul, and divinity. In other words, my brothers and sisters, when you come to communion in about 10 minutes, you are receiving resurrection. Whoa. Whoa. If that doesn't get your attention, I don't know what will. See, I have a personal belief that one of the reasons why people don't go to confession anymore and why that sacrament has fallen on such hard times is because we no longer understand what happens on that altar. Jesus clearly asked a question in the gospel. Did I not tell you, if you believe, that you would see the glory of God? See the glory of God. Who do you say that I am? You see, Jesus had to correct Martha and Mary's theology. The resurrection is not a future event, something that's going to happen later. No, the resurrection is about a person. It's about a relationship. Heaven is not something that I'm going to live after I die. It's something I have to live right now, right here, in this moment. Who do you say that Jesus is? What do you believe about Jesus? What do you believe about everything he said? What do you believe about everything that he did? Do you have little boy, little girl faith? If I'm not mistaken, if you search the scriptures, you will not find 1 ounce of evidence that Jesus ever preached theology. I learned in the seminary that my theology had to inform my humanity. My homiletics professor said, you guys should be preaching with a Bible in one hand and a newspaper in the other. Stories, stories, stories. They're as free as the air you breathe. Stories break open the scriptures. I told you 2 stories. Those stories are evidence of who those children believed that Jesus was. They're evidence that they believed everything he said and everything that he did out of the mouths of children. Yes, it's true. We do get our information from our cell phones. It's true that science is a source of knowledge. It's true. But where and what is the source of our wisdom? It's Jesus Christ, who said, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, yet shall he live. And everyone who believes in me will never die." Do you believe this?